As rural Americans, we have a unique understanding of and connection to the land. Whether we ranch, farm, log, or simply recreate, what we do today determines our tomorrow. As stewards of the land, it's our duty to ensure that our children and grandchildren can enjoy the outdoors in a similar manner that was afforded us. Join the Rocky Mountain Elk Foundation and ensure the future of elk, other wildlife, their habitat, and our hunting heritage. Visit rmef.org today.
Thanks as always to our friends at Rocky Mountain Elk Foundation for presenting According to Flint, including episode number 40 of our podcast with the one and only 1997 PBR World Champion Michael Gaffney. On a personal note, Michael Gaffney, known throughout his career in rodeo and PBR as being one of the classiest, nicest bull riders one could ever meet. I always said, walking away from Michael Gaffney, I hope I was as good to him as he was to me. We'll kick it off with the G-Man right here on According to Flint. But first, a word from our friends at Pendleton Whiskey. Well, welcome back once again to another episode of According to Flint, episode number 40. That's right, the G-Man himself. 1997 World Champion, 97. It seems like yesterday, much like myself, sporting a little more gray hair than we used to. Good to see you, buddy. How are you?
Good to see you too. Oh, it's fantastic. Yeah, it's all good. All good. Just you start getting in these 50s, it's just good to hear the stories of waking up every day. So I'm doing good.
Yeah, you and I think, didn't we have a discussion a couple of weeks ago that I talked to bull riders, rodeo cowboys. I've talked to Ty Murray, and you. When I came on the scene, I was really new, and you guys had been around. So I went through my whole career thinking all of you were older than me. And I'm older than all you old bastards.
That's old bastard. Hey, I'm even older than him. Holy.
Yeah. I said the other day, you said, yeah, I'm 52. I went, well, hold on. Because I told you this, you're my gauge. When people ask me how long I've been in the PBR, and I say, well, my first world finals was Michael Gaffney, 1997. So you had been around and I was new. So, it's logical. But that's how far back we go. It goes back a ways, doesn't it?
It goes back a spell. But I was telling you, I did an interview just this whole team thing coming out, and we were just talking about that, how, the PBR was formed in 1992. I mean, we're 2022, we're 30 years into that. And I mean, I think about the world title, it's like not even my life, right? That was like a dream I had in a past life. And then a long time after that, we had children, right? So Rob and I were nearly 40 when we had those. So it's just, I don't know, it just seems like it's happened so fast. And here we are 30 years into it. It's ridiculous.
Yeah. Ridiculous. Since you brought up the PBR formed in 1992, and I should have mentioned in your intro, a PBR founder. You were one of those 20 guys.
Yes.
I've talked to several. I had a good talk with Jerome Davis about it. And I always want guys feel what your attitudes was. You're in these meetings, they're going, we can do this. Let's chip in $1,000. The old story. Did you go, yeah, this is going to work? Or yeah, it's only $1,000. What was your general feel for what was happening there?
If I set the stage a little bit, so this was, that February, March timeframe after my first qualification at the NFR 91. So, and not to bore you with too many details, but so went to my first NFR 91, and right after that, January, February, March, we end up there in this hotel room in Scottsdale after the Justin World Sports Bull Riding. And I just won the biggest rodeo, right? What, I had a really good finals run, rode 9 out of 10. And, and at that age, at 22, you never think you win 50, 60, $70,000. You're never going to have another broke day in your life. Right. But once Uncle Sam gets his little claws in there and that type of thing, right. We all know, so that's just the immaturity part. And so the next thing you know, you're sitting there with empty pockets and you're going, oh my gosh, and that type of thing. So again, setting the stage. So when we finished that bull riding that day, I'd won some money and, we had entry fees, and we're sitting in that hotel room, and to fast forward to the end of the day, we all decided to put in this $1,000. And I'm thinking, my first thought was Robin, because here's somebody who's pre-med, about, to go into medical school, a big cost in front of us and stuff. And I'm thinking, what the heck is she gonna think? I'm gonna write a check for $1,000. And I knew, we've been married then for a while and knew her pretty well. And I knew when I told her, and she said, you wrote a check for what? I mean, it was not good in the Gaffney household for a while, because $1,000,
$1,000, man, I'm telling you,
right?
Yeah.
When we were back then, the sponsorship thing, that was non-existent. You got free shirts. We were thrilled to death. So anyway, just to set the stage a little bit. So in that atmosphere, it was exciting. I'm around Cody Lambert and Tough and Ted News and, Brent Thurman, of course, my traveling partner, was there, and Aaron and Cody Custer. These types of guys were there. And there was about, I want to say there's probably a dozen of us there that day. Mm-hmm. Clint Bronger, that Daryl Mills,
Oh, right. I forgot about Daryl. Yeah.
Yeah. Daryl was there.
And Jerome Davis was there.
Jerome Davis.
Yeah. And young. He was just coming off a college deal.
Yeah.
Didn't have the $1,000. He, wrote the IOU or whatever. So
exactly. And that was kind of the atmosphere, to tell you the feel. It was apprehension. There's no doubt. Here's Jerome, was he maybe 19 or 20 at the time? So it was a pipe dream, to say the least, right? It was a pipe dream. We were, it was something that, of course, being around guys that I traveled with, some obviously Tough and Cody, that I was excited about, but at the same time, to think that it would ever, let's not even talk about today, and even Chris Shivers, 10 years or close to that, winning the first $1 million. We would laugh at Randy when he said, we're going to give $1 million to the first world champion, here in a couple of years. We laughed him out of the boardroom that day. So, and I can go all day long on how we thought of things like that. So it was, yeah.
I remember going, and I'll come back to that, but it reminded me where our reference of money is. I was working a rodeo in Bismarck, I think it was Bismarck, one fall. And Adriano Marias was at this rodeo because he was trying to get the NFR, trying to win a world title. Yeah. And so he had just come from this PBR finals, and it wasn't like it is now. None of us really knew. And I said, how'd it go? He said, I win the finals. He didn't speak as well then. I said, how much did you win? He said, I think he said 47,000. And I went, holy crap. That's how the reference has changed.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Yeah. And this weekend, Jose wins 47,
close 40, to 40. Yeah.
40,
right
whatever it was.
Yeah.
Back crazy. Then, yeah. Isn't that something that, to put it in context and to put it in, it was, yeah.
So I think this is partially true, maybe not as dramatic true. Is there truth to, you guys all got together when it was purchased by Spire Capital, correct? You had a party to pay off the founders. Is it true you had your $1,000 canceled check and it was almost 15 years to the day?
Almost. Yeah.
So that's true. It's
true. True story. We once we gathered everybody, the shareholders there in Pueblo, and it was at the museum or something right there close to downtown. Anyway, we got together and it was done, and everybody raised their hand and said, yeah, let's do this. Later that night, I think, or maybe the next day, whatever it was, Randy had and got this really nice spot there on the south side of Colorado Springs for all of us to get together. And I'd taken that check with me because I mean, we pretty much knew it was a done deal, right? We just needed to get everybody's okay in the final decision. And it was darn near to the day that I'd written the check, and it said to Sam Applebaum.
Sam Applebaum, yeah.
Yes, that's who I wrote the check to. Yeah.
Oh my God.
So it was. So I still got that check. Sure enough, I should have had it. I got it right here in my file. Did
you show Robin, your wife, the $1,000 one and the one and I don't know that we can say, and no, I've never run into any of you guys that have ever really told me how much the check was when it sold. Yes. So
yeah,
was it different? Was it different for everybody?
It was, and you remember the stories, depending on, because of the board members, and Spire and I, obviously conversations that they had with Randy and probably Cleet and some others, as far as individuals that had the chance to either stay on board, so to speak, and keep an investment in the company moving forward with Spire. And I was one of those individuals. I was fortunate to do that. So Robin and I decided we would go ahead and leave a portion of our funds within the PBR and going forward. And so that's what we did. So, but needless to say, I mean, everybody getting their checks, whatever that was like what you said a minute ago, times 10, right? We have the 47,000 that Adriano got back.
times 10.
Maybe some 10 or 20 or 30. You know what I mean? It was life altering, right? Life changing, and a day. Speaking of the pipe dream, that is truly the American dream coming to pass, right?
It's funny when I think it was Ty told me about, not on here, in a private conversation about calling Jim Sharp. Hey, we're going to sell this thing. What am I going to make? And they told him, all right. Hey, well, I'll be talking to you later. I got to go pour some concrete. He didn't even, it was just like, no big deal.
Yeah.
Well, and I will say, I won't say how much it was, but you haven't exactly had to dig ditches since then. So that's good. But we used to not make fun of you, but we used to call you the smartest bull rider in the world, because you are a sharp guy. But the reason was you were married to a doctor. So we're always like, G-Man's the smartest, man.
My little ace in the hole. And there was always the scuttlebutt around, that, let's see, when she gets kind of down the road, she'd be like kicking you to the curb once she got out and got her MD and everything, she'd be like, okay, no more cowboy.
What am I doing? Yeah. And look at you now.
This dead
still married to a hot doctor. Yeah. She could be on Grey's Anatomy. She could be like
I was telling you earlier, I'm kind of pitiful over here. Old wrinkly gray-haired guy, but she makes me, it's kind of like I always said, you know what? I may not be able to ride worth a damn, but I'll look good doing with my nice looking chaps and everything. As long as I got her I look flashy next to Robin, but
she's hey, go back to the NFR. So 91 is when you won the average at the NFR.
Yes.
How many times did you go to the national finals?
Just the twice, 91 and 96. Adriano and Mark Kane and I had qualified the very last weekend at the Cow Palace to make it 96. Yeah. So just twice.
There is so much celebration, and rightly so, about Jim Sharp, who a lot of people call the greatest bull rider ever. Lots of people would say that about him when he rode, the first guy to ride 10 out of 10 bulls at the NFR. But he actually, how many in a row did he ride? Like he rode like 28 in a row over 3 years, something like that. Crazy. But we forget about Adriano, Norman Curry. They both rode 10, and you rode 9, and maybe should have rode 10, right?
Yeah, the woulda, shoulda, coulda, which you could this list of woulda, shoulda, coulda rode that final 10th bull, whether it be a Denny Flynn or it would have been any number of guys, right? That should have, Tough, for crying out loud. How many, these types of guys that we all know so well. The very bull that put me in 96 that night when Mark and Adriano, I celebrated, I think, at one of the at Denny's afterwards there, somewhere in the shady parts of San Francisco, before the airline flight. To put me in the NFR was Dogface, that canine Dogface. I had him in the short go, and all I remember was thinking, when I stepped off of him there, I was thinking, man, I was really kind of anticipating, it was a do or die kind of thing, right? But it was so smooth, and so it was one of those, it was just one of those that I remember as an easy thing, which, bull riding is not always that easy. So it was just a really a great night, and a real great finish to the weekend, or that run when we left the PBR World Finals. And then to go in there and ride 9 in a row, and then I had him in the 10th go around, and I just fell off at the last, like half a jump or whatever it was. And yeah, so and one of my things, we talk about coaching, these things about you got to let stuff go, but I didn't let that go for like 3 months. My wife was finally like ready to kick me out of the house. You just got to let this go. But it was a great run with those two guys. And, and again, we talk about guys in the locker room, the guys you're around, they just make you better. Right. And I mean, Adriano and Mark, they were, Adriano, right? He's a beast, right? To think he won his 3rd world title when he's 36 is, we can go on all day about that.
Yeah. Well, and you came to, that's who was leading the world in 97 when you came in. You were number 2 coming in?
Maybe Cody Hart and I, there was, how that transpired. One of the last events we went to was like Guthrie, and I remember them talking about it, and it was all about building hoopla and everything, about opening the door. And it was Cody Hart and myself, and then somewhere in amongst that time frame, I can't remember how it fell, but Adriano had gotten hurt down at Bajetos, which we'd all been to before, and broke the leg and put him out. He was done. And so it opened the door for some possibilities with mathematical chances. And it just, my run from there on was one of those, it was like storybook. It was really solid, and I was feeling good. I was having some shoulder problems, but I think it took my mind off a lot of the BS and stuff. And it is good BS now, right? The interviews and all the hype, and everything, but that's what we do, right? That's what we do to build the sport and whatever, and the hype and everything. But it was good how it worked out. It just
but we use you as an example. I have, of guys, the great ones take advantage. Clint Atkin calls it situational awareness. You were aware that everything had to go right for you, with Adriano out with a broken leg. Everything had to go right in 97 for you to win the world title. And you rose to that occasion and rode every bull. It was at the MGM Grand that year. So yeah, Adriano was out, but you had to make things go real well, because, and this is not, I've always said, you're one of our great champions, and deservedly so. Adriano doesn't break his leg. It's a battle, and he could be a 4-time world champion. Honestly, right?
Oh yeah. Yeah. I mean, it just is one of those things, and we know the world of bull riding is so what if, and the chances of getting hurt are ridiculous, and that type of thing. It was just my time, and it wasn't his. I mean, it was just a bad luck situation that he got put in, and there's no doubt that when you get a chance like that, and the door cracks a little bit, if you want to. And I attribute a lot of that success to the people I'm around, right? I mean, when you're around, and guys like you that are my friends, and it makes you better in all aspects. I mean, truthfully, right? I mean, it's great. I come back now, I've kind of got back in the fray, and I like nothing more than to walk in the locker rooms of you and the rest of the web, and I saw Shorty this past weekend. I mean, it's so welcoming, and it makes you feel good. So when you walked in that locker room and you had the guys around you like Clint Bronger and Troy Dunn, and the list goes on, Aaron Seamus, Cody Custer. I mean, how can you not just feel great about what you do, and rising that occasion, and you walk into the world finals, you guys, everybody knows that electricity that you feel out in Vegas. And I think that's why I had success in Vegas in general, because man, you just feel good, and even when you're hurting and you're dealing with injuries and stuff, you raise the bar, you know. So
the Adriano thing, I think I always look back, and now the Brazilian bull riders have become so much a fabric of what we do, and half our guys at a tour stop are Brazilians. I think we forget how hard it must have been for him. He was the first one. He didn't speak English. He was a legend in Brazil, comes over here. I do, if it's possible to forget how great he was, I think we have a little bit.
Yeah.
And, you know, when people say, who's the greatest bull rider you ever saw? There's, you know, oh, JB Mooney, oh, Jim Sharp. I always say, oh, McBride's right.
McBride. Yeah.
Adriano doesn't come up as much, and that's,
absolutely. Absolutely. And to think, and I look at it from a perspective of, you know, and we've all been broken, but at 35 plus 35 and a half, when I got on that last bull at the PBR finals Flint in 2004, you know, I was dealing with full growing. I was dealing with lots of things, and to put it in context, I mean, here's a guy we visited. If I back up a little bit, we visited just not too long before that in Florida, and he was going through some issues with his riding, his confidence, and all this type of stuff. And then you fast forward it, this was another year and a half later, he wins a third world title. I mean, he was on the verge of, I mean, he told me that I never heard him speak like this. And he was beaten down and on the verge of, he told me quit. He said, it's almost like I'm embarrassing myself. And I'd never heard him speak like that. And I thought, well, maybe he is. Maybe he's lost, if you want to call it, the edge or that drive.
We thought so.
Yeah.
We talked about it out on tour. So yeah.
So, and to see him come back and do that is again a tribute to him and what speaking of fabric and what he's made of. And I think to go back from my perspective and knowing him as well as I do, and I think I can say this without malice and any kind of negativity, is that there was a time that came, it was like after 96 when him and Mark and I made it. You know, there was a dramatic shift in him a little bit. You know, they always talked about the soap opera star and this type of thing. And, you know, call it, and maybe you just call it ego. You know, there was a lot of attention and, you know, and it affects us all and you know, good and some bad and whatever. And it wasn't I don't think it was a positive for him, because we'd seen him in such a way as just this beast of a man and this type of thing. When you started seeing the theatrics and the buck and shoot and stuff, you know, and when you talk about who was in the locker room at that time, you know, McBride, Ross, JW, myself, you know, and Razor was still in there. And you know, it was being a cowboy and being tough and that's like a lot of that stuff didn't really belong. Yeah. So he caught a lot of flack about that. So I think maybe that's why maybe it's not spoke of as much as, or it could have a
good point.
You know what I'm saying? It could have a part to do with
that's
that.
A good point, because I do remember there was a shift, and that's put on us in this world, like you said, like all of this. It's what we do. It depends how you do it and how you handle it. And I do remember, you know, I got in, not fights with Adrian, by no means. We were always good friends, but things that he misunderstood that I would say, and we'd talk it out. And I think it was because stuff was put on him. He felt the weight of that, so he was quick to defend himself and quick. It was different, but
it was.
Yeah. You mentioned we've seen you lately. Like all of a sudden, I'm somewhere, Sacramento or where. Here's G. What up, G? And so, as we record this earlier today, you had some news conferences. You are involved with PBR in the new teams format. What is your role and with what team? Fill us in a little bit.
So, you know, for people that are listening, obviously they've heard of this new PBR 2.0. I've even heard some people say, or, you know, this thing that Sean's been keeping in the war chest for a long time because of COVID, and it's finally come into pass. And I've got to say, Flint, a lot of it is geographical because of me, and call it whatever you want to call it, the big man upstairs, call it just by chance, but the Gamblers here in Austin are being established here in Austin because of the man and his wife team, Egon and Abby Durbin, are the team owners, and they wanted it to be in Austin. And for people who don't know, there's obviously the Rattlers with Cody Lambert is the other team in Texas, but we all know Texas is a big state. And these two individuals, so it can handle, right? We got the.
Just ask. Stick your head out the window and ask. They'll tell you.
It'll be quick. Yeah, it'll be quick. Hey, nothing's bigger than Texas.
Yeah, my God.
Yeah. That's right. The doors are all a little bit wider, Anyway, so no, it's all good. Good people. So
what? So you're what is your title?
So I am the coach.
Okay.
I am the gambler, the new team gambler coach. And Sean, in a nutshell, Sean called me. What has it been? Just a matter of a couple of weeks before I saw you in Sacramento for the first time, and since I think the Global Cup, when I saw you in where were we? Edmonton, is maybe the last time I saw you. Whatever. It's been a long time, and that's what kids do to you, right? I mean, we've been so ingrained in what Merrick's been doing the last number of years because of soccer and that type of thing. Just it's busy. Life gets busy, which we all know. But back to the Gamblers. So they just hired a new CEO just before St. Louis. So he just, remember, you met JJ there.
I did.
He just got fire hosed there, right? But he wanted to go there, obviously, and see what he got himself into, and just a top-notch guy and a CEO and a GM, because he's from Nebraska. He's a baseball player by trade, but he's been here 20 plus years, 24 years, I believe. He knows everybody in Austin. He's like on the sports commission. So what better man could you ask for than somebody who knows the lay of the land and the folks that and the powers that be. So Abby and Egon, they hired a fantastic individual. Been with him a little bit now, obviously, and he's an athlete first, and he understands that this is good stuff.
So you're flying around as the coach. There's going to be a draft, just like other pro sports. So you guys, So you've kind of been scouting, talking to guys, getting a feel for the kind of people they are, everything that would contribute to a team in a positive way, or a negative way. You're trying to pick out of these guys, right? Am I on the right track?
No, you nailed it. You nailed it. And you can see that from the other cats that are the coaches and their other crew that they've kind of employed or that have joined their team, like McBride and Keith Ryan Cartwright. They're there and they're scouting out these guys and that type of thing. And it is about, right. It's no secret, right, that when we speak of us in the draft, people know that the Gamblers, and for those who don't, Egon and Abby went up there and we got the number one pick. They did that. Unfortunately, we missed it. We tested positive, my wife and son and I, for COVID. We missed Madison Square Gardens, which was a real drag, because it was going to be the first time I was going to get a chance to be around Egon and Abby, and they're wonderful people, but just the same, we ended up with the number one pick, which, Brian, who are we gonna pick?
Boy, that's
a tough one.
Oh boy. Yeah. Do you want me to do it for you?
You want to say you could probably do it, couldn't you? Yeah.
Can you? Okay. So new people, maybe there's rodeo people watching, but I mean, number one pick, Jose Vitor Leme. Can you find a negative there as far as putting a team together? A guy if you were to write a scouting report on Jose Vitor Leme, what would it say?
Oh, he's the epitome. I don't know what could you not say? I mean, he would be the poster child for anything and all that's positive. I mean, he's a specimen, is he not?
Oh,
I mean, we talked about earlier, and I'm not going to go down, but Jim Sharp, the best of the best. I mean, I look at, and I've got so many guys you could sit here and talk about: Troy Dunn and Bubba Dunn, Chris Shivers, Justin Brown. I mean, and this guy, I mean, he's just an amazing. And from what I've learned, Flint, in the last number of weeks since the first time I saw you in quite a while, is that he's humble, he's smart, he's everything that you could put on a team and have the team be, kind of just melt around and just make everybody better. And so to have that type of individual in your locker or in your group and in your team, and to build the culture that you want, and be a part of your program, I mean, you couldn't ask for anybody more solid than this guy. Now, I mean, let's even forgetting about what he does in the arena, for crying out loud, right? Because we just talked about some things can, and I'm not saying, I mean, he's still got, number one, is dangerous, right? We know as well as that, and guys here today, he could be gone tomorrow. But at the same time, he just does it right. And everything I learned from Cleet and I talked quite a bit. We talked about him, and he's just said he can't say enough about the kids. So I'm just really looking forward myself getting to know him. And I look at people like that, like you and myself, getting to know guys, and it just makes you better too, right? Being around somebody like that.
Yeah,
so
I rode the elevator with him Saturday night after Little Rock, and he was headed back to Texas to beat a storm, and he had his wife and baby, and he had just won the event in Little Rock, but he didn't pick Whoopah, the world champion bull. He picked another bull. Well, come to find out, he thought he had a bigger lead. He calculated wrong. So he picked the bull he knew he could ride. So I'm we're in the elevator with him, and Richard Jones and I, we looked, we said, did you figure wrong? Did you have it wrong and pick the wrong bull? And he went, yeah. I mean, he laughed about it and ended up winning, of course. There is nothing overrated about that guy. I can't keep up with fans. For so long, the judges screwed the Brazilians out of points. Now they're gifting Jose so that he can win. I can't keep up with who we're screwing, what the conspiracy is on what day. But I'll tell you, I was there for all his record-setting rides.
Yeah.
And I can't pick apart how they got any of it wrong. I've just waited. I've just held off to put him in greatest bull rider I've ever seen, just for my own, because I'm stubborn and one of those old guys. Yeah. But damn it, it's getting close now.
It's getting tougher and tougher. Yeah, I know. I'm with you. I know you can't, right? I mean, he is just he's a specimen. I mean, he really, truly is. And to think, whether it be, I look back when this all happened. Do you remember Bo Jackson? And do you remember cats like that they were just, they weren't from this world, right? They could do anything. Michael Jordan, I mean, went and played baseball. These are guys that you're like, that pisses me off. They can just do whatever the hell they want to do. Do you remember those guys?
Oh, okay. Yeah. Which reminds me, you'll appreciate this. We used to have debates when I was coaching. When I was coaching high school track, all the coaches in the front of the bus, we used to have a debate about the definition of an athlete. Like just that word. Some coaches said it's the guy that didn't have raw talent, that worked his way and made himself great. That's an athlete. Mm-hmm. The definition I liked the best was somebody who was a great basketball player, but could kick your ass in bowling the first time, or darts. That's Michael Jordan. And I think that's Jose. I think that's him.
Yeah, I know. It doesn't matter what they pick up, whether they pick up a club or a bowling ball. They just go out there and they're just so, I mean, whether it be hand-eye coordination or eye coordination, whatever it is, they're constructed a certain way. I mean, it sounds like, from what I hear, right? And then kicking his helmet over by you and all that kind of stuff. He's a hell of a soccer player, which I'm looking really forward to, because my son's a soccer player.
I was going to say,
and it sounds like he's got Cleet was saying he has a full-size soccer field at his home that they all gather together and play. And
of course,
and
of course he does.
Yeah, of course he does.
He's made $5 million in the last 3 years. Of course he has.
Yeah, he made $5 million in 2 weeks. Yeah.
But hey, his helmet, he used to just kind of kick it. The other day, he takes his helmet off, points to me across the arena, kicks it. I never have to take a step. He kicks it right to me. So yeah.
more about what we're talking about. See, being precise. You and I could do that. What? How many times? 600 times. It still goes,
and hurt our foot.
And hurt our foot where he's got he wrinkles his big toe just perfect so he can and it's got a nice spin to it. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
I mean, yeah.
I actually have a mark on my arm right here where I caught his helmet. It was coming in hot.
Coming in hot.
Well, that'll be interesting. The team thing is, I know you've been around a while, and a lot of people are doing this, and I don't know a lot of detail. How many will you draft? How many on a team?
So we'll draft the first 5 guys. Then we'll have 2 alternates. Okay. So right after the World Finals in Fort Worth in May, the next day we'll go in and we'll draft our first 5 guys from what I understand, and then we'll have our 2 alternates, and then we'll have a kind of a practice squad. So we'll have 10 guys, 3 guys of the 10 that'll be kind of the class B or C ballers that'll be down there in the dugout that we can pull out if we need to, or that type of thing, right? So, I can understand whether it be a traditional rodeo fan or whoever, but I think from my perspective, if you look at some of these events that you know way better than I do, well, the Global Cup, for instance, coming up this weekend.
Yeah,
I mean, we all know. Speaking of responsibility and feeling that you got to step up and swing a little bit harder when you've got somebody relying on you. I mean, it's a given, right? When you have a team concept, you've got some responsibility to your cohorts next to you, and you want to have them be proud of you, and you want to try for them, right? If I get bucked off, it's bad enough that I've got to, go home and grovel to my wife and tell her what a deadbeat or listen to them tell you what a loser you are, that kind of thing. But maybe it's a little bit harder to listen to, 3 or 4 other guys browbeat you and tell you what a deadbeat you are. But again, I just love it. And I think what we've seen in the past is these guys rise to the occasion. And I think, again, this culture that I myself see wanting to construct in our locker room. And quite frankly, I think it'll be everybody, all 8 teams, even though we're going to have this competition amongst all of us, it's going to be healthy and it's going to be fun. We're going to kick it, you know what I mean? And it's going to, as a whole, it's going to bring us up. So I just hope the fans will give us a chance to display what the guys can do. And hopefully it'll make them rise to the occasion all the better. So, yeah.
For some reason, I just feel like as we talk, we talked about you going the NFR and different things. And I know that fans love to hear specific things about bull riding,
Yeah.
And with you, I get asked a lot, who was your favorite bull of all time? I get, who's your favorite bull rider? Who's your favorite? I always say my favorite bull, because I thought he was a showman and had a great personality and could sell it, was Little Yellow Jacket. You knew.
Yeah, I knew where you're going.
When he bucked a guy off, he'd go to the center gate and then he'd take 2-3 steps out and he'd look at the crowd.
Remember? Yeah. Like staging. Like,
if a guy rode him out the arena,
it's like he's embarrassed. I can't show my face. Yeah. Yeah. And I
had a good relationship with him.
I did. It was pretty embarrassing up to a certain point. I mean, I can tell you what his underbelly looked like. I know that from the week I finally got him twisted there in Nampa, because he was speaking of an athlete, and he was something. And to hear the stories of them pulling out the trailer in the pasture and him just charging ahead to come be, hey, let me in that, and I'm ready to rock and roll, right? So that's great to hear to begin with, and then have them haul him somewhere and just see that kind of, speaking of theatrics, and really see kind of that human side of him, kind of stick his chest out and said, yeah, I'm a bad hombre, right? So you gotta love it. You gotta love it. And I think we both know, and it seemed like it was a lot more of the women that really had kind of the rooting. They rooted for the bulls more than which I understand. I'm an animal lover and that type of thing. But to see the the animals get taken care of the way they are, and the pride that's given, you know, to see Chad get teary-eyed, you know, when he talks about him, you know, Chad Berger, you know, it's an element in our sport that I really like, and yeah, it's good stuff. Yeah.
Well, because you brought up, you know, the bull that got you to the NFR, Dogface, and then Buck Off. See, and I think back, he was a big red bull, right? Those big from the Northwest.
From the North, yep, up there. Yeah, exactly.
Big red, because they were all kind of on the same bloodlines. It took me years to realize his brand was K9.
Yes.
K9 Dogface. When I finally realized that, I didn't tell anybody that I had just
you missed that. Yeah.
I'd look at him and go, "Does his face look like a dog?"
He look like a dog.
K9. Oh,
yeah.
Any others, like even in your rodeo career, any bulls that, I know these are cliche kind of questions, but I just haven't talked to you in a while. Any ones that stand out that either dick slammed you?
Yeah.
Or that you
there's
were
one. I mean, as soon as you say that, I mean, my first NFR, right? And even going, if you go back a few years before I even bought my card or my permit, you know, you had these infamous bulls like 018 Cowtown, and you had Mr. T, these, you know, these bad cats. And you're like, man, what would I do if I got on? How far would he throw me? You know what I mean? This type of thing, or if I'd have any chance in hell. And then, so I get to the NFR in the 9th round. Who do I draw? I draw Skull's Pacific Bell.
Pacific Bell, yeah.
And this is a true story. So I'm back, and I'm feeling pretty good about myself. You know, I'd made it. I was traveling with Norman, leading up. You know, Norman and Mark Kane, Dax Lackey, and I traveled all of '91. We had airplanes and all that stuff. So I was feeling good about myself. 6th, 7th round, I thought, you know, I'm doing okay. Maybe I can roll on here and that type of thing. And then come the 9th round, my chest is out, and then I draw him, and and as far as like this fear factor, right? And there's always that, whether it be a cliche or not, you know, why do they send young guys to war, right? Because you're not scared of anything, right? You're infamous. You're never gonna die, you know. And so I wouldn't say, but I was, for the first time, I think up to that time, I was apprehensive, because even though I was feeling like a real true badass, that son gun they ran in there. And if you remember those shoot gates, and they were, I don't know if they were Powder River, but they had like slats, like 2x8 slats that were stacked on top of each other. And what I'm saying is, from the back alley, when they loaded him, and when it started in there, for every time there was a piece of a 2x8 or 2x6, he took his horn perfect, and he flipped each top. This is true story. And they loaded him in the first. They bucked him out of that.
So in the front, it was the front slide gate.
There's a front slide gate,
okay.
the sliding gate, and the very top 2x8 or 2x6 of what it was. He took each one of those, and they were just slid down in this, right? They didn't have top, and he took off each one of those panels, each one of those 2x8s, so he could see over that deal. That's true story. And he took off, and I thought, this son of a gun knows right where those big old horns are going, and you know, and I'd seen him through the years, and I thought, but then as they got him in there, and he was so perfect, he was smaller than you'd ever imagine, and I thought, how great would it be for me to just clack? And I knew he was going to go right. He was around the right. So anyway, I'm drawing this out, but he got in there, and I went to slide up on him, and he just kind of crouched and laid on my left leg for a right hand delivery. And I gotta say, I was a little bit even more apprehensive. And I thought, I gotta make this corner. If he doesn't get, he's gonna just stack me up.
So he knew what he was doing. He was like,
he knew,
I'm gonna get you over here.
Yeah. And I just, you know, like we didn't mess around there a lot. And I got up there, scooted up, and of course Dan's back there growling at me or whatever. But, and I think it was his eyelash kind of looked to the right a little bit. It wasn't even his head. It was just his eyelash. And I mean, I just went, you know, yeah. I just charged over there like he was gonna be Owlman, right? And he felt me. He's like, you little punk. And he felt me. He jumped, and he left me sitting there like I'd never been on a bull in my life, and embarrassed me. And Yeah. And then Troy Dunn just goes the next night and just sticks it on him and spurs him around the right, and even more just adds insult to injury. But Troy's like a beast of his own, and
a whole different deal. Yeah.
But anyway, I don't know. We got onto that. We were talking about a whole.
But that's good. He gave you the eye fake.
He gave me the little right in this whole movement. One movement, he gave me the little eye flutter, and I went I wasn't gonna be behind.
I've listened. I do all these little Q&A tours now with fans. I do once in a while, and they ask Cowboys, well, do you watch video? Do you know what a bull's going to do? And they're like, well, yeah, but
there's always the but.
You watch, guys. You watch it all the time. They'll set a trap. Look at the great bull now, Whoopah, who's as good a bull as we've ever seen. Yeah. All of a sudden, a couple of weeks ago, he spins the other direction. Like, where the hell did that come from? Like, and he has this look on his face like, what do you think?
What do you think? Yeah.
I gave you the eye fake.
You know what the thing is, you dumbass.
The eye fake. The eye fake thing I use a lot because I got it from my Canadian friends. I can't remember. Bullfighter might have been like Jason Davidson or Jesse Byrne. Get run over. Well, he gave me the eye fake.
He gave me the eye fake. He didn't even move his nose. He just gave me the eye fake.
Yeah. Hey, you flew. Do you fly still?
I don't. I haven't been current now for a while. I sold my airplane, and I was just, kids will do that to you, right? If you're doing,
Wasn't your dad? Wasn't he a pilot? Was he a pilot? Your dad was military, correct?
Yeah, he was the fighter jock out of Iowa. Him and Mom were both from Iowa. They met at the surf ballroom where Buddy Holly, left that night, was killed. Yeah, that's where they met, and he was a baseball player, and one of these guys that was a big time athlete in Iowa, and no background in rodeo. But my mom was the horse enthusiast, even though she didn't have a horse growing up. But I had my first Shetland when I was like 2, on an Air Force base in Tucson, right? And one thing led to another. So
I always liked seeing your dad. He's a big guy, but his voice was just like yours. It was like your voice coming out of this big guy. Hello, friend. How you doing? I just always, he was just a real pleasant guy to be around. That's why I asked. I did remember that he had been a pilot. So he's been gone a few years, hasn't he?
He has. And he just, and I don't know if you remember this, but he really was just the most mellow, easygoing. He had a 14 triple E shoe. They had to make him special flight gloves. I mean, he was just a bear of a guy, and he got into the F4. The cockpit, cockpits and those things weren't really that big. They weren't made for him. They had to make him special boots for the. He just, and he was going to go play pro baseball, but he got drafted in the Korean War, and but you'd never know that he was. I mean, he's one of those guys that would probably turn into real dynamite if he had to have. But I never saw him really. He never. The only thing he ever did to me, ever disciplinary, Mom, was the hard ass. He only grabbed me by my ear one time and lifted me off the ground, and I think I learned then I probably shouldn't push the old man. So, but yeah, but he was good to be around.
You keep bringing up your kids, and I've put it off till now, but we knew you from New Mexico. You lived in Albuquerque. Hell, you rodeoed with our friend Richard Jones back in the day. You're a New Mexico guy. And hell, the greatest was in the Global Cup a few years ago when you were the coach of Mexico. And we're like, now they know he's from New Mexico. It's neither new, it's not new, and it's not Mexico.
And his speech is not really good.
No Spanish.
No, I know all the dirty words. But
but you have moved to Austin, and really for your kids, right? Tell us about
Merrick.
Daughter's older than Merrick. He's a soccer player, right?
Yeah, he's a soccer player, and I never knew. And you being the dad of 2 girls, you never know. I think vulnerability, and again, bull riding, you become pretty calloused in this type of thing. I never knew real vulnerability until Merrick was born. You just don't. I never was really frightened with what I did, but my dad, it really frightened him for what I did. It really scared him. I mean, literally. And and I never understood why. And then now, being a dad myself, it was like instantaneous, right? When you first hold them, you just turn into this bag of goo that you never really thought you would be. And, you find yourself crying at something or whether it be a movie or something really silly that you would have never considered otherwise. But to be a part of Merrick's life in the soccer field, and I've learned the game, obviously now. We didn't even play soccer back in New Mexico. I didn't even know what it was. I mean, to be quite frank, I thought it was a sissy game, really. Because if you couldn't hit somebody on a field, what are we doing here? I got to be able to hit somebody. And so I've got a new appreciation for the game, and I'm so glad he's doing that instead of riding. Because there's a lot of our pals, right? I mean, whether it be a Ross Coleman or JW, they're boys, they all ride. And I get it. I mean, I was that age one time too, and I loved it. But to watch my kid do that, I'd be so fearful. And so he's a real machine. He's a good athlete. He's fast, and it's been fun to watch him grow and do that here. And
Austin gave you it had what he needed, correct? And
it did. And we all know that depending on where you lived, the politics and everything that were involved in New Mexico, they shut us down. That crazy governor there shut us down, so we couldn't play. Matter of fact, I made a field at the back of our property there. It was just a kind of a small gravel field that I made, so the kids could come out to our house and practice, because you couldn't even practice publicly. And but long story short, I was taking Merrick to either Tucson or Phoenix every weekend for many, many months, just so he could play ball. And when this opportunity arrived for us to have a chance for him to come down here, the competition, that's why I moved to West Texas to go to college, because of the competition. And so it's been a great move for him. Even though when we moved here in the heat of the summer, I didn't really think it was that cool.
Yeah,
So,
it's a little sultry. It'll suck the starch out of your clothes.
Yeah. Speaking of turning into a bag of goo, I was like this goo. Yeah.
Well, as we do this airs not on this day, but it's my daughter's birthday today. As we do this, Shelby, 23, and I'm with you. I wanted to make a little collage of pictures, and I'm going through and find her in the bathtub with this mohawk, and I just she's working today, has a job.
You're looking at this full grown adult human being that you're thinking,
get out of here. Hey, did you did TV for a while, color commentary?
Yes.
We have other guys now. I think Justin McBride is as good of a color commentary of Western sports. I think he could do a whole rodeo. I think he could talk about the calf rope and the team rope, and of course the bareback ride. I think he could do every event and be one of the best analyst colormen in rodeo or Western sports. Did you enjoy the TV part of it? You did it a couple of years. Did you like it?
I enjoyed it, and Joe Lavero, who did the show and stuff with us for those, and I think he was the biggest part of that, right? I mean, even though I was, speaking of apprehension, I mean, it was, I was never big on the TV or photographs or anything like that. It's just not who I was, and so it was a role that I really enjoyed in certain parts of it. Being still a part of the PBR and being around, like coming back and seeing you guys. I mean, what a great feeling. So just being there around that element, and of course not having to be scared anymore, and climbing aboard all them bad cats. But so I really enjoyed that part. The traveling, which we complain about to each other and stuff, that gets old, the airports and all that type of stuff. But being in that element was always such a great thing. And but Merrick had just been born, so I stepped away from it. They were changing some things, but back to McBride. I mean, I watch the show now, and it's so enjoyable, and he speaks so well, and him and Craig are just such a great team. It was great to work with Craig. I should have thrown Craig in there with Joe Lavero. I think he's great the way he sets up, whether it be McBride or JW, and Cooper Davis has been on the show here.
Right.
and just done a great job. So to have his input, but yeah, McBride has really found a spot where he belongs, because he's it's been a joy to watch.
Well, there have been times, it's only been in the last few years, we don't get, like, I'll say, are we live TV tonight or taped? We're live. We're Michael Gaffney live.
Yeah, I knew
I was
hoping you were going to forget about that. Yeah, that's still used on the, Isn't that sad?
Let's send it down to Michael Gaffney. And what was that? You started a piece, right? Like,
I think so. Yeah. And there was some vulgar, commentary that was, I think, it happened.
So you thought you were taping it and you said something, stumbled, and said, shit.
I think it was one of the better of the bad words that was said. I mean, I picked up lots of bad email after that on people's response to
the
that.
Legend goes, you said, whatever word. Can I start again and in their ear the other way? We're live.
We're live. Talk about a no shit moment, I'm telling you. Beep, 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 beep.
Oh, that's funny. So
well, some of the things we're being known for, some of the things you might try to forget, but
I know. Well, it's been good to see you these last few weeks. Like I said, you walked in, I went, it's the G, and everybody knows it's just G. Good. I used to call you good. But
one syllable.
It's a good, and of course, all the old timers, they say the locker room doesn't have this, it doesn't have this. It all evolves. You still have that group of guys that are in charge, the group of guys that are funny. I mean, it all evolves, but I think we take it in perspective of how the new generation is evolving. And the truth is, evolve all you want. The guys are still cowboys. There's a lot of guys 24 that are way more, they're doing way useless crap than these guys. Oh, they're still cowboys, aren't they? And a lot of good guys there.
They are. And I've been fortunate these last handful of weeks, Flint, to get to, because I have been gone for a long time, and I can honestly say that none of them I have been acquainted with. I just haven't. Maybe shook one of them's hand at the World Finals, 3-4 years ago, whatever it's been. But I went to dinner. I've been to dinner with a few of them, whether it be a Mason Taylor or Kyle Oliver, or, these types of kids. And I can say this: I've been really impressed that their demeanor and their attitudes, and then of course, then you add this new team thing that we're doing, and they're so excited, and to listen and watch their eyes and read them, how truly excited they are, and maybe to be a part of whatever team that they get into, and how they approach the game. And you said it, they're in there, and they're not in there by mistake. They've made it on tour. They've paid their dues. They've busted their asses, and they're tough. They're tough kids, and you have to be. And you know it as well or better than I do, because you're in the locker room every day and doing what you do out there on the dirt. It's a brutal sport, and you got to I hand it to them. And these Bulls, I mean, being in Oklahoma City, watching those babies fight, it looked like a war zone, didn't it? I mean, there was.
God. It was
there 9 or 10 of them out the next day. I know they were splattered against the walls, and I mean, it was crazy. And we remember that we had those every once in a while, but it's just the game it is. But I got to hand it to them, because it's commendable. They got to be tough, and they got to be cowboys. Yeah. So it's
I like our group of young guys right now. I think we're in a good phase, and I'm around them a lot, but it's different for me. I get asked by fans a lot, or friends of mine, are you friend? Do you hang out with the Bull Riders? Are you friends? That they're 24 years old. It's a different, literally a different generation. And I just, so you know, I do say back in the day, I did have Bull Rider friends. I was friends with Michael Gaffney. I was friends with Tater Porter and Justin McBride. Now I'm like the old uncle in the room down the hall. It is different. It's a good relationship, but I think that's what was fun and why I wanted to have you, because we really were friends. We did all the Enterprise rent-a-car stuff together. We did photo shoots and commercials, and
Golf.
And
What did we go? Go-kart racing. We go go-kart racing.
Go-kart racing.
Yeah.
Went go-kart racing in Edmonton.
Yeah.
And so I was truly friends, and I like the young guys now, but I miss my friends on the road, being the same age as bull riders, which that went away a long time ago.
Good
But
times.
listen, I appreciate the time. It's good to talk to you. So.
I told you one last thing. I told you the other day. I said, I started hearing about these podcasts you're doing, and I got to say this. And I said, well, he's got JW on there and got me. I said, and I was kind of feeling a little bit sorry for myself. That son of a gun. I said, we go way back. I said, I was kind of getting jealous, and then you hit me up, and it made me feel.
Now that you come around, I realize you're still alive. Hell, I didn't know. I didn't know you were around.
But no, it's good stuff. Man, thanks for having me on.
Thanks, G. I appreciate it. Michael Gaffney. Thanks, buddy.